Chapter 51. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Black King, Sebastian Shaw, although the information he currently knows is not much, Richard already knows where he should start. He didn't think the system would issue a mission to rescue Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver for no reason, nor did he think it was a coincidence that he met Gambit in the casino. Not only that, his intuition also told him that the invitation mentioned by Gambit was, if nothing else, an invitation from the Hellfire Club. Gambit has the superpower of telepathy, and he cannot telepathically telepathize with Gambit, but Gambit is definitely not the only mutant who was invited. What's more, other mutants won't have the power of psychic isolation. This means that he only needs to use telepathy to find other mutants in Las Vegas to find out whether the invitation mentioned by Gambit is related to the Hellfire Club. If all goes well, he can also telepathically find members of the Hellfire Club. After thinking briefly, he immediately used telepathy without any hesitation. Without much effort, he sensed 200 to 300 mutants in downtown Las Vegas. He ignored the Epsilon level and Delta level mutants and focused on sensing the Beta level and Alpha level mutants, although it is still not certain that the invitation mentioned by Gambit is related to the Hellfire Club. But you don't need to think about it to know that mutants who are too weak will most likely not receive the invitation. Compared with the Brotherhood of Mutants and the X-Men, the Hellfire Club is less famous and is not as world famous as the Brotherhood of Mutants and the X-Men. Although not as famous as the Brotherhood of Mutants and the X-Men, the Hellfire Club is not much weaker than the Brotherhood of Mutants and the X-Men. Apart from anything else, those who can become official members of the Hellfire Club, without exception, are all named beings in the Marvel Universe. I won't talk about the 4 characters who have appeared in the movie: Sebastian Shaw, Black King, Emma, White Queen, Azazel, Red Devil, and Janos Quest, Riptide. In the comics, Magneto, Dark Phoenix, Captain Britain Bryan, son of Mephisto Blackheart, son of Satan Hellstorm, son of Apocalypse Carnage, Madam Hydra, and the clone of Phoenix the Red Queen, among others, was a member of the Hellfire Club at some point. If the Brotherhood of Mutants is open to all comers, anyone can join as long as they agree with the concept of using force to fight for power. The Hellfire Club is an out-and-out mutant organization that only recruits elites. Therefore, the mutants who can be invited to the Hellfire Club will definitely not be ordinary Epsilon level and Delta level mutants, unless they have very special superpowers. After excluding the Epsilon level and Delta level mutants, the number of mutants who needed further confirmation by Richard suddenly dropped to less than 50. Without wasting time, he immediately began to have more in-depth telepathy with the remaining mutants, and quietly read their memories of the remaining mutants. More than half are mutant agents of the Department of Mutant Affairs. After excluding the mutant agents, there were only 15 mutants left. Among these 15 mutants, only 8 received invitations. Just as Richard guessed, the person who invited them was indeed the Hellfire Club. However, they don't know why the Hellfire Club invited them. The invitation they received only had a time and address, but no specific content. The day after tomorrow at 8 p.m., Atomic Nightclub. In addition to figuring out the time and place, Richard also figured out who the current leader of the Hellfire Club was. Although this is not the X-Men movie universe, the current leader of the Hellfire Club is still the Dark King Sebastian Shaw. In addition, White Queen Emma, Red Devil Azazel, and Riptide Janos Quest are now also members of the Hellfire Club. Exactly like in the movie, after discovering that the current leader of the Hellfire Club was Black King Shao, Richard immediately made a decision. Hey, Wang Xiao's X-gene superpower energy absorption is determined by him. Black King Shao is not an Omega-level mutant, but his energy absorption is stronger than many of the same type. General energy absorption can only absorb a single or several forms of energy. Black King Shao's energy absorption allows him to absorb all energy except spiritual energy, including but not limited to kinetic energy, thermal energy, electrical energy, nuclear energy, etc. More importantly, his energy absorption can also directly absorb the energy from enemy attacks, whether you attack him with fists, fire bullets and cannonballs at him, or attack him with lightning and shock waves. The energy contained in the attack will be absorbed by him. In addition, the energy absorbed and stored in his body can not only be released again, but can also be used to strengthen his physical attributes. Although his energy absorption is stronger than many mutants of the same type, he still has weaknesses. Whether it is absorbing energy or storing energy in the body, there is an upper limit. To put it simply, it cannot absorb infinitely and store it permanently. Once it exceeds the upper limit, it will cause serious damage to him. If he can absorb and store energy infinitely, he can become a real Omega-level mutant, when there is no energy stored in his body. Black King Shaw can only be regarded as an ordinary person with a relatively strong body, as long as a battle occurs, he can quickly make his physical attributes reach the level of superhuman. Unless his enemies do not attack him, he will not have the opportunity to absorb energy from the attack. Of course, he can also absorb and store energy in advance before the battle begins, for example, as in the movie, absorbing the energy of the nuclear reactor in advance to facilitate himself to deal with the next battle. With only the superpower of energy absorption, Black King Shaw is difficult to defeat by conventional means. However, he is still not invincible. Because he can't resist the telepathy of psychics, without wearing a helmet that isolates telepathy, and the White Queen is not by his side, he can't defend and resist any psychic attack. The reason why Black King Shaw in the movie was defeated was because Magneto took off his mind-isolating helmet, which gave Professor X the opportunity to fix him with telepathy and finally completed his revenge. In addition, the fact that Black Shaw in the movie was killed by Magneto was also related to his underestimation of the enemy. To put it in a more vivid way, the villain died because he talked too much. In addition to energy absorption, Black Shaw also has a self-healing factor. Although he can't heal himself as fast as Sabretooth and Wolverine, his self-healing ability is still very unscientific compared to ordinary people. In addition, his self-healing factor can effectively slow down his aging. If he absorbs enough energy, he can also achieve rejuvenation and immortality to a certain extent. After recalling Black Shaw's energy absorption ability in his mind, Richard's idea of plundering his superpowers became stronger and stronger. Not only that, he is also very interested in the telepathy of the White Queen. As long as he plunders the telepathy of the White Queen, his telepathy can be upgraded to alpha level immediately. Although he may not be as good as Professor X after the upgrade, it can also make him one of the top psychics on Earth. In addition to being interested in the telepathy of the White Queen, he is also very interested in the White Queen herself. Just now, when searching for information about the Hellfire Club from the minds of the 8 mutants, he unexpectedly discovered that not only was Black Shaw younger than in the movie, but the White Queen was also the same. Black Shaw in the movie was 30 or 40 years older than Magneto. And the White Queen was about the same age as Magneto and Professor X. Although the 8 mutants did not know the exact ages of Black Shaw and the White Queen, from what they knew, Black Shaw would not be more than 40 years old, and the White Queen would not be more than 30 years old. After discovering that the White Queen was younger than he expected, Richard's mind immediately flashed through the various white outfits of the White Queen in the movie: white clothes, white skirts, white boots, white bikinis, white sexy underwear. If the White Queen's age was the same as in the movie, she would be the same age as Magneto and Professor X. Richard would not have any interest in Emma, the White Queen, just like he would not be interested in Mystique, who was his grandmother. But if the White Queen is only in her 20s or 30s, that's another story. After thinking for a while, Richard temporarily removed the White Queen from the kill list. Although killing the White Queen can upgrade his telepathy, there are not a few psychics in this world. Even if he doesn't kill the White Queen, he can still upgrade his telepathy to the alpha level. Chapter 52: The Thug in Suit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miami, on the sun deck of a luxury yacht, the White Queen, who has blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, tall figure, and round and slender legs, is lying on the sofa wearing sunglasses, enjoying the sea breeze and sunbathing. Although the Hellfire Club dinner will start at 8 p.m. the day after tomorrow, neither the White Queen, nor the Black King Shao, nor the Red Devil and Riptide are going to Las Vegas now, but are staying in Miami. With the Red Devil here, they can go there at any time and don't need to stay in Las Vegas at all. Just as the White Queen was happily enjoying today's sunbathing, Riptide Janos Questi, who was wearing a white suit, came to her and said to her, "The people outside Las Vegas sent a message saying that they saw Remy LeBeau and Richard Wesley in the casino." Richard Wesley? After hearing Riptide's words, the White Queen took off her sunglasses and said, "Isn't he still in San Francisco at noon today? It looks like he has already left. He has the ability to teleport. It's not surprising that he arrived in Las Vegas in a short time." Riptide continued. "Does Shao know?" Queen Bai sat up and asked Riptide. He was the one who asked me to come to you. He meant for you and Azazel to go there immediately and give him an invitation to the dinner. After saying that, Riptide took out an invitation to the Hellfire Club from his jacket pocket and handed the invitation to the White Queen. Why should I go? Just let Azazel go alone for this kind of thing. The White Queen asked in confusion without reaching out to accept the invitation. Because he is also a psychic, it is safer for you and Azazel to go there together. Riptide said slowly, Richard is a psychic. After hearing Riptide's answer, the White Queen frowned slightly. Although psychic powers are not particularly rare, they are not ubiquitous. When Richard became an S-class wanted criminal by the Department of Mutant Affairs, the Hellfire Club began to collect intelligence about him. The White Queen has also seen the collected information, but she didn't remember that it said that Richard had psychic powers. Where did you collect the information that he is a psychic? Department of Mutant Affairs? Avengers? Or X-Men? That the White Queen frowned and asked. Don't ask me, I don't know either. Shao told me. Like the White Queen, Riptide only found out today that Richard is a psychic. To be precise, he only learned about this from He Wangshao when He Wangshao handed him the invitation letter. As for where He Wangshao knew it, he didn't know. He Wangshao didn't say anything, and he didn't ask. This is called tacit understanding. After thinking for a few seconds, the White Queen slowly said. Leave the invitation, I'll go there with Azazel later. Good. Riptide placed the invitation on the table in front of the White Queen. After seeing the White Queen put on sunglasses and continue sunbathing, Ryu's eyes unconsciously fell on the White Queen's attractive body. Then, he looked back and forth unabashedly. Although he usually doesn't lack women, it doesn't mean that he has no thoughts about the White Queen. Not only him, but Black King Shao and Red Devil Azazel also have a lot of interest in the White Queen. Being interested in beautiful women is engraved in men's DNA, of course. Exceptions are men who are physically incompetent and who love men. As long as they are normal men, they will be interested in beautiful women. The only difference lies in whether to take action and how to deal with the other party. Although Black King Shao, Red Devil, and Riptide are all very interested in the White Queen, they have no intention of forcing the White Queen. Partly because the White Queen is now their companion. On the other hand, it's because the White Queen is not an ordinary woman with no power. The White Queen's telepathy is tricky enough. In addition to telepathy, she also has a diamond form. To put it simply, unless the White Queen is willing, even if they want to force the White Queen, there is nothing they can do against the White Queen. Riptide didn't hide his gaze. The White Queen didn't pay attention to his inspection. In other words, she has long been used to this kind of thing. Not only that, she quite likes this kind of thing. Because it means she is a very beautiful and attractive woman. After looking back and forth on the White Queen's alluring body several times, she fiercely left the sun deck. Afterwards, he left the yacht and prepared to go find his lover in Miami to exchange feelings. Las Vegas. Little did Richard know that the White Queen and the Red Devil would send him invitations next. At this time, he was measuring the size of his suit in a handmade tailor shop that only accepted private customization. Although suits are not as convenient as casual wear and sportswear, suits are still essential. Clothing for mature men. The suit is the armor of the modern gentleman. On certain occasions, a crisp and decent suit can well demonstrate your temperament and charm. In addition, even if you fight in a suit, as long as you look handsome enough and move well enough, you will still have the unique charm of a suited thug. Richard came here to customize a suit for a simple reason, because after watching the video of his battle with Hulk this afternoon, he discovered a problem that he had overlooked before. Clothing. His clothes are too casual. In addition to his strong strength and handsome appearance, Sephiroth's charming clothes are also a very important factor in his popularity. Silver shoulder armor, black windbreaker, looming strong chest muscles. If conditions permit, Richard doesn't mind wearing the same windbreaker as Sephiroth to the Atomic Nightclub. But unfortunately, he can't get the same clothes as Sephiroth now. In the movie, when the Thought Body Cardankyu and Genova cells combined to revive Sephiroth, Sephiroth's clothes and authentic sword were transformed by energy. Richard had tried to use magic to transform Sephiroth's clothes before, but I don't know if it's because the template fusion degree is not high enough, or the control of magic and the use of skills are not proficient enough. He can't use energy to transform Sephiroth's clothes now. since there is no way to completely replicate Sephiroth's outfit, he can only use a custom-made suit instead, wearing a custom-made expensive suit, holding a 2-meter-long silver-white authentic knife, and performing a suit thug battle with actual actions is better than fighting in casual clothes and sportswear. Unlike playing Texas Hold'em in a casino, Richard did not disguise himself at this time. Because there was only an old tailor who was said to be the British royal family, and a few assistants in the tailor's shop, and he was the only customer in the whole tailor's shop. After entering the tailor's shop, he used telepathy on everyone in the tailor's shop and changed his image in their eyes. Although he can't use telepathy to affect the vision of thousands of people at the same time, it is still no problem to affect more than a dozen or 20 people. This kind of handmade tailor shop that only accepts private orders, and the head tailor was once the royal tailor, will not have many customers in a year. Although there are not many customers, this kind of tailor shop is truly 3 years of no opening, 3 years of opening and eating. Before crossing over, Richard had never been to such a private tailor shop, but the original body had been there several times. After all, the original body was undoubtedly a rich second generation, and had attended various dinners and parties with his father since childhood. Time passed by little by little. It took almost half an hour just to measure the size, and this was just the beginning. The choice of fabric, the style of the collar, the material of the buttons, etc. all needed to be selected. After spending more than an hour in this handmade tailor shop, Richard completed all the processes required for custom-made suits: gun lapel, double-breasted, Prince Charles buttonholes, black double-breasted striped jacket, white shirt, black twill tie, black Oxford shoes, in order to get the suits. That would have taken at least 1 or 2 weeks to make in 2 days. Richard paid a considerable expedited fee, including 2 suits. He paid a total of $120,000, spending all the money he won from the casino at one time. Although it was a bit expensive, he didn't take it to heart. For him now, making money is easier than drinking water. If he wants, he can become a billionaire at any time. After leaving the hotel room number, he left the handmade tailor shop, put on sunglasses and a baseball cap, and walked slowly towards the nearby casino. P.S. Today is the last day of the second round of recommendations, and the third round of recommendations will start tomorrow. Here is a brief report on the results. Currently ranked 7th on the Jutian new book list. After the third round of recommendations, it should be able to move up a bit. As for the follow-up reading ratio, it is now 5.4, and 1 out of every 6 people has read the latest chapter. The ratio is good and healthy. Finally, I sincerely thank you all for your support. Chapter 53: Red Devil and White Queen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not long after, Richard arrived at the gate of a casino. Just when he was about to enter the casino and win a living expense for himself again, he suddenly stopped and looked up at a building 2 or 3 kilometers away from the casino. To be precise, he was looking at the roof of this building. Someone is using telepathy on him. Although he didn't know who was using telepathy on him, when the other party used telepathy to lock him, he also sensed the exact location of the other party. Although people with psychic abilities can detect and prevent others from invading their brains, people with psychic abilities can also be perceived telepathically. To give a more vivid example, people with psychic abilities have a psychic firewall that ordinary people do not have. To be more precise, only those with complete telepathy or psychic isolation superpowers will have a psychic firewall. If it is other types of psychic superpowers, for example, mental charm, creating hallucinations, hypnosis, etc., cannot prevent the invasion of telepathy. Although these psychic abilities cannot prevent telepathic intrusions, mutants with these psychic abilities are much more sensitive to telepathic intrusions than mutants and ordinary people who have no psychic abilities at all. Supervision. In order to see clearly the situation on the roof of the building, Richard directly used his supervision. It's actually them. Through the telescope and clairvoyance of supervision, his sight passed through the obstacles of the surrounding buildings and saw 2 familiar figures. One is a beautiful woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, tall figure, wearing a white hip-hugging skirt, which perfectly shows off her sexy curves and long legs. The other is a man wearing a black suit, with dark red skin and a tail, who looks different from ordinary people and looks like a devil. The first time he saw these 2 people, Richard recognized them: the White Queen, and the Red Devil. The White Queen and the Red Devil did not have supervision and could not see Richard, who was blocked by buildings and was 2 or 3 kilometers away. However, the White Queen knew that Richard had discovered her and the Red Devil. She indeed couldn't see Richard, but she could clearly feel that Richard had stopped where he was, and used his own telepathy to prevent the invasion of her mind. He is indeed a psychic. Although Ryu had told her this information in advance, she still had some doubts before confirming it herself. Telepathy is not a particularly rare X-gene superpower, but it is not something that anyone can possess, not to mention complete telepathy. Even if it is a psychic ability with a single effect, not all mutants have a chance to awaken. In addition, the White Queen did not completely believe Black King Zhao's intelligence, and there was another very important reason, that is, Richard had shown too many superpowers to the outside world. So far, the number of superpowers he has used in public alone has exceeded 10, not only that, the superpowers he has displayed are also very diverse, including all types. Although some mutants can possess several different types of superpowers at the same time, the White Queen has never seen a mutant who has more than 10 completely different superpowers like Richard. After discovering that Richard had reversely locked herself and the Red Devil, the White Queen turned to the Red Devil and said, "I found him, and he found us." "Where is he now?" that the Red Devil asked directly. "The entrance to the Vasilis Casino 2 or 3 kilometers away," the White Queen replied. "Okay, I'll take you there." After saying that, the Red Devil stretched out his right hand towards the White Queen. After seeing the Red Devil's actions, the White Queen raised her fair and delicate left hand without any hesitation. Just when she was about to hold the Red Devil's right hand, the Red Devil's expression suddenly changed and he quickly retracted his right hand. Then, Lightning pulled out the 2 scimitars he wore on his waist and looked behind him with a wary expression. Teleportation. He sensed the spatial fluctuations caused by teleportation. Unlike the Red Devil, the White Queen did not sense anything strange. Although both require the use of psychic power, teleportation and telepathy are 2 completely different methods of use. Teleportation is the use of the power of the mind to travel through space. Telepathy, on the other hand, is a variety of mental applications. Although the White Queen did not sense the spatial fluctuations caused by teleportation, she immediately cheered up after seeing the Red Devil's actions. Under their gazes, Richard appeared in front of them out of thin air like a ghost. After seeing that the person coming was Richard, the Red Devil put away the scimitar in his hand. At the same time, the White Queen's voice rang. "We don't mean any harm, we just came to send you an invitation." After saying that, the White Queen took out a black invitation letter from the handbag she carried with her, walked towards Richard, and handed the invitation letter to him. Although he knew that the invitation only contained the time and place of the dinner and no other useful information, Richard still opened the invitation and took a look. "I probably have nothing to do with your Hellfire Club." Richard looked at the White Queen, who came to him and said slowly, "It didn't happen before, but that doesn't mean it won't happen in the future." The White Queen quickly replied. After saying that, she gave Richard a slightly ambiguous look and smile. Although she had read various reports about Richard and the videos uploaded to the internet early in the morning, after seeing him in person, the White Queen found that he was even more handsome than in the video. Especially the silver-white hair that was longer than a woman's, silky and smooth, and gently dancing in the breeze. "This little guy is so handsome." The White Queen sighed in her heart. Richard didn't care about the White Queen's scrutiny and continued, "Even if there is one in the future, I don't think I need to attend a meaningless dinner now. Although I can't tell you the specific content of the dinner now, I can assure you that as long as you attend the dinner, you will never regret it." The White Queen looked at Richard seriously. What on earth do these guys want to do? Richard doesn't think that the Hellfire Club is sending invitations everywhere because they are bored. Apart from anything else, it can be seen from the mutants they invited that they must be planning something, and the plan is not a trivial matter, or just kidnap the 2 of them. Looking at the White Queen and the Red Devil in front of him, Richard thought seriously. Although the White Queen and the Red Devil both have very good superpowers, he is absolutely sure to take them down. For others, the superpowers of the White Queen and the Red Devil are very tricky, but for him, there is no threat at all. The White Queen's telepathy can't threaten him, her diamond form, let alone. As for the Red Devil, the Red Devil has the ability of teleportation, and he also has it. Not only that, the Red Devil's strength and physique are only slightly stronger than ordinary people, and there is no way to compare with him who has super strength and super physique. As long as he is not hit in the eyes by the Red Devil's scimitar, even if he stands still, the Red Devil can't break his defense. Seeing Richard silent, the White Queen and the Red Devil thought he was thinking about whether to attend the dinner. After 5 or 6 seconds, Richard looked at the Red Devil and said, "Ask you a question, have you ever raped Mystique? What?" After hearing his words, the White Queen and the Red Devil frowned at the same time. "I don't need to answer you." The Red Devil looked at Richard with a bad face. "You'd better answer me, because this determines whether you can leave here alive today." Richard continued. Chapter 54, the 6th Alpha Level Ability. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Red Devil immediately drew out the scimitar from his waist and looked at Richard with a serious expression. If he was alone, he would not hesitate to use teleportation to leave immediately or kill Richard, but unfortunately, he did not come alone. What's more troublesome is that the White Queen is now in front of Richard, just as the Red Devil was thinking about how to rescue the White Queen before Richard took action. Richard summoned the authentic knife and patted the White Queen's fair face with the authentic knife. "If you don't want to get hurt, you'd better stay away," Richard said to the White Queen, feeling the cold touch of the authentic knife. The White Queen looked at Richard with a complicated expression. At the same time, several thoughts flashed through her mind. Is he a friend of Mystique? Did the Red Devil really rape Mystique? When Richard slapped her face with the authentic knife, the White Queen's first reaction was not fear, but frowning and looking at the Red Devil, wondering if the Red Devil really raped Mystique. Although she and Red Devil were companions of the same organization, and she also knew that Red Devil, Riptide, and Black King Shao were not good men who followed the rules, but this did not mean that she would not take anything to heart. She was also a woman, so she had a natural aversion to women being raped. Not only that, if Red Devil really raped Mystique, it meant that Red Devil would also have the possibility of raping her. The White Queen would never have thought that the reason why Richard asked Red Devil whether he had raped Mystique was just to know whether the Night Walker in this world was Mystique's son. The Night Walker in the movie just happened to have blue skin like Mystique. The Night Walker in the comics was Mystique's son. After seeing the White Queen, his companion, looking at him with suspicion, the already unhappy Red Devil became even more unhappy. "I didn't rape Mystique," that the Red Devil said, suppressing his anger. Although he didn't know whether Red Devil was telling the truth, Richard didn't intend to use telepathy to check his memory. The Red Devil, who has lived for thousands of years and has the ability of teleportation, knows very well how to prevent telepathy from invading the brain. Even without telepathy, he only needs to constantly use teleportation to change his position and not give the psychic the opportunity to lock on him, so that he can prevent telepathy from invading his brain. The last question, have you heard the story of, I don't eat beef? Richard said to the Red Devil, I don't eat beef? What is this story? What on earth does he want to do? Whether it is the Red Devil or the White Queen who has retreated to the side, they are looking at Richard with puzzled faces at this time. In terms of age, they are all older than Richard, but now, they all have a feeling that they can't keep up with Richard's thinking at all. Boy, you. Before the Red Devil finished speaking, he had a strong intuition of death in his heart. Not good. He is deliberately distracting my attention. Although he didn't know what Richard was going to do, the Red Devil didn't waste any more time and decided to use teleportation to leave immediately. As for the White Queen, he was in no mood to care whether the White Queen was dead or alive. The Red Devil's intuition came at a timely moment, but unfortunately, he was still a step too late. When asking him if he had heard the story of I don't eat beef, Richard had already locked the dimension slash. When the Red Devil was about to perform teleportation, Richard also performed dimension slash. Like the flash that Richard had at the beginning, teleportation also has a skill pre-swing time. Although this time is only a few tenths of a second, it is enough for Richard. Before the Red Devil's teleportation was performed, the dimension slash had already taken effect. The Red Devil, who was at the center of the dimension slash, felt an inexplicable strong binding force, and the surrounding space was twisted strangely, binding him firmly in place. At the same time, the crescent-shaped sword energy of the dimension slash appeared out of thin air, launching a powerful slash from all directions. Chi 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 chi, whether it was the Red Devil's body or the Scimitar in his hand, they were completely unable to stop the dimension slashes. The Red Devil didn't have time to do anything. The crescent-shaped sword energy of the dimension easily slashed through his body like a cream cake, cutting him into pieces of different sizes. Regardless of whether the Red Devil had raped Mystique or not, Richard would not let him go alive. The fact that the Red Devil also had teleportation alone meant that he was destined not to let the Red Devil go. Is the Red Devil dead? The White Queen knew that Richard was very strong. She had watched Richard's live broadcast at the Los Angeles branch before, and had seen Richard use the dimension slash on the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch, but she never thought that the Red Devil would have no ability to resist in front of Richard. How strong is he? Is he really an Omega-level mutant? The White Queen looked at Richard with an unbelievable look on her face. Richard didn't care about the White Queen's gaze, and quietly performed the plunder. Gain new abilities, teleportation, immortality. Gain the same type of ability, ability fusion. Teleportation is enhanced. Looking at the information panel in front of him, Richard frowned slightly. Although teleportation and immortality are the main superpowers of the Red Devil, in the comics, the Red Devil has more than just these two superpowers. In addition to teleportation and immortality, the Red Devil in the comics also has the abilities of time and space freezing, paralysis, deformation, and will bending. Immortality, super long life, current level, alpha level. After opening the description of immortality and taking a quick look, Richard closed the information panel and walked towards the White Queen with the authentic knife. Soon, he came to the White Queen. After taking a look at the White Queen's figure, he said slowly, "You are a woman, so you have one more question than the Red Devil. First, how old are you this year? Second, what is your purpose in inviting alpha-level and beta-level mutants to the dinner? Third, did you capture a pair of mutant twins named Wanda and Pietro? Think about it before answering. These three questions also determine whether you can leave here alive today." Richard did not deny that he had a great interest in the young White Queen, but this does not mean that he will definitely let the White Queen go. If the White Queen plays tricks on him, he doesn't mind chopping the White Queen to death and making the White Queen's telepathy and diamond form his own. After hearing Richard's words, the White Queen, who had just calmed down, frowned immediately. Of these three questions, the first and third questions were beyond her expectations. She was not surprised that Richard wanted to know what the Hellfire Club was planning, but she didn't expect Richard to be interested in her age. In addition, she was also very curious about how Richard knew that Wanda and Pietro were in the hands of the Hellfire Club. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, she replied, "I am 26 years old. We invited other mutants to the dinner mainly to increase the core members and strengthen the strength of the club. As for Wanda and Pietro, they are indeed imprisoned by us now, but I don't know where they are imprisoned. Only Shao knows where they are imprisoned. In addition, the operation to capture them was led by Shao himself. I did not participate and I don't know the details. Only Black King Shao knows the place of imprisonment." After hearing the answer from the White Queen, Richard's first reaction was that she was lying, but after thinking about it, mainly seeing the White Queen's body trembling slightly unconsciously, he felt that it was unlikely that the White Queen was lying. "Since you don't know where they are imprisoned, then you..." Before Richard finished speaking, the voice of the White Queen rang. "Don't kill me, I will be very useful to you when I am alive. As long as I can do it, no matter what, as long as you say it, I will not refuse." Chapter 55. I am very angry now. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are you begging for mercy? Is this the benefit of being handsome? Or is it because she is also a white-haired person? Richard looked at Queen White in surprise. Although in the movie, the White Queen also chose to surrender and did not fight to the end, but no matter what, she resisted for a while in the movie, and she didn't give up her resistance until she was almost completely defeated by Magneto in her diamond form. But now, not only has the White Queen not used her diamond form, she doesn't even have any intense emotions. "Won't you say no to anything?" Richard's eyes glanced back and forth at the White Queen's pretty face and seductive body. Although she had often been looked at by men before, but for some reason, Queen White always felt that the way Richard looked at her was different from other men. In her opinion, the eyes of other men looking at her were full of desire, and what they were thinking about in their minds was how to ravage her in bed. And Richard gave her the feeling that a hungry beast was sizing up the prey in front of him, as if he wanted to eat her completely. Although she didn't know why she felt like this, the White Queen responded immediately without any hesitation. Yeah, anything. After hearing Queen White's words, Richard raised his right hand and grabbed Queen White's shoulder, teleportation. The next second, he took the White Queen to the business suite of the Caesar Palace Hotel. As long as you can show your worth, I won't kill you. For example, Richard said to the White Queen, just like before he could finish speaking, the White Queen interrupted him. It goes without saying, I know what to do. The White Queen spoke, then, she squatted down directly in front of him, raised her hands, and prepared to unzip his pants. I'm very angry now. After seeing the White Queen's actions, this classic line flashed through Richard's mind unconsciously. Although I was no longer Hina before I traveled through time, I had played Ludo with several seniors in school, but now he has no intention of letting the White Queen help him relieve his anger, at least not until the real business is done. Just when the White Queen was about to unzip his pants, he immediately used teleportation and stepped back several meters. If what you said is okay and you mean this kind of thing, then I'd better kill you. You are indeed beautiful, but there are still many people in the world who are more beautiful than you. If you can only provide this value, I don't think I need to spare your life. Richard looked at Queen White seriously. After hearing his words, the White Queen immediately said, Your first question is to ask me how old I am. Don't you just want to sleep with me? Richard did not deny it and said straightforwardly. That's just one aspect, not the whole story. More importantly, even if I want to sleep with you, I should decide when to start, not you. Queen Bai frowned and looked at Richard, stood up, sat down on the sofa, and continued. What exactly do you want me to do? It's very simple, as long as you become my subordinate. Richard came to sit on the sofa opposite Queen White and said slowly. Subordinates? Aren't you afraid that I will betray you? The White Queen said with a smile. There's nothing to be afraid of. If you really betray me, then I'll kill you. However, your words reminded me. Richard raised his right hand, mobilized his magic power, and used a little move he invented. Under the White Queen's gaze, a magic ball the size of an egg, emitting blue and white light, floated on his right hand. What's this? After seeing the magic ball summoned by Richard, the White Queen frowned and asked. It's just an energy ball. To be precise, it's an energy ball that only I can control, similar to a remote-controlled bomb. The energy inside is very stable. When it is not detonated or exposed to external stimulation, this thing will not be dangerous. But if someone tries to destroy it, the energy balance inside will be disrupted and it will explode like a bomb. Although it's not particularly powerful, it's more than enough to blow you to pieces. As Richard explained, he controlled the magic ball. He named the first bomb and let the magic ball fly in front of the White Queen. Before the White Queen could continue to ask, Richard let the first bomb magic ball penetrate into her chest and stay near her heart. If the White Queen took off her white hip-hugging skirt and underwear now, she would see a light blue round mark the size of a fingertip in the center of her chest, like a tattoo. This light blue circular logo is the logo of the first bomb and was specially designed by Richard. Is this how you plan to control me? The White Queen said slowly. No, this is just one of the means. In addition to this, I will also use telepathy to tamper with your subconscious to make you more willing. You are also telepathic, and your telepathy is still above mine. So to tamper with your subconscious, you still need your cooperation. Richard said calmly, if it were someone else, he would only need to use telepathy, but unfortunately, the White Queen is also a psychic, and her telepathy is stronger than his. If the White Queen does not cooperate, let alone tampering with her subconscious, even simpler mind reading and memory reading cannot be done. People outside think you are a fearless person, but I didn't expect you to be so cautious. It's okay to install a remote control bomb on me, but you actually plan to modify my subconscious. The White Queen frowned and said. Although she also has telepathy, it is also difficult for her to detect after her subconscious has been tampered with. Not only tampering with the subconscious, but also tampering with memory and personality seals are also difficult to detect. Phoenix Gene is a good example. Professor X sealed Phoenix's dark personality for 20 to 30 years, but Phoenix, who has telepathic ability, never found it. If there were no accidents later, causing the dark Phoenix personality to break through the seal set by Professor X, Phoenix would not have known that Professor X had been hiding it from her. If there were other options, the White Queen would definitely not let Richard tamper with her subconscious, but unfortunately, she has no other choice now, or, the moment she chose to beg for mercy, she was mentally prepared. Otherwise, she would not choose to beg for mercy so easily. After a few seconds of silence, the White Queen said calmly, "Go ahead, I won't stop your telepathic invasion." Okay. Richard nodded, and immediately used telepathy to invade the White Queen's brain and enter her subconscious. Although he had never tampered with other people's subconscious before, he quickly completed the tampering of the White Queen's subconscious. Not only that, after leaving mental hints such as cannot betray, obey all orders from Master Richard, and Black King Shao is not a good person in the White Queen's subconscious, he also deleted part of the White Queen's memory. To be precise, the part of the memory after the first bomb entered the White Queen's body was deleted. Although he could also delete the part of the memory of the first bomb, he did not do so, because as long as the first bomb is still in the White Queen's body, the light blue circular mark on her chest will not disappear. Done. After doing all this, Richard looked at the unconscious White Queen and ended the telepathy. The White Queen's coma did not last long, she woke up in just 2 or 3 minutes. "Would you like something to drink?" After seeing her open her eyes, Richard, who was tasting whiskey, said to her, "Is there any red wine?" The White Queen glanced at the whiskey on the table and said softly, "Yes." As soon as the voice fell, Richard used his mind to move objects, making the red wine glasses, and bottle openers in the sweets wine cabinet fly in front of him. Then, under the gaze of the White Queen, he opened the red wine and poured her a glass. "Thank you." The White Queen took the red wine glass handed by Richard and said gently, "You're welcome. Where is Sebastian Shaw now? Who are the other core members of the Hellfire Club besides you and Azazel?" Richard asked the White Queen. "P.S. Thanks to Ace for the 5,000 starting coins reward, thank you for your support." Chapter 56 Different Personality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The White Queen first took a sip of the red wine glass, then slowly replied, "Shao is in Miami now. In addition to me, Azazel, and Shao, the core members of the Hellfire Club are Turbulence, Janos Kays, Black Bishop, Isabel Nava, Black Rook, Bud Blom, and White Rook, Sirio McCartney." After hearing the White Queen's answer, Richard frowned slightly. He was not surprised that Turbulence was now also a core member of the Hellfire Club, but he had never heard of the names of the Black Bishop, the Black Rook, and the White Rook, let alone what abilities they had. "What abilities do the Black Bishop, the Black Rook, and the White Rook have?" Richard continued to ask. The White Queen did not hesitate and immediately replied. "The Black Bishop's ability is to control shadows, the Black Rook's ability is to fly and release energy shock waves, and the White Rook has the ability to control gravity. They are all alpha level, and the Black Rook and the White Rook are brothers." After the White Queen briefly introduced the abilities of the Black Bishops and the other two, Richard continued to ask, "Are they also in Miami now?" "No, Shao has assigned them other tasks, but I don't know what the specific tasks are." The White Queen replied quickly. Although the White Queen did not know what the Black Bishops and the other two were doing now, Richard did not take it too seriously. As long as he knew where the Black King Shao was, it was enough for him. If the Black King Shao was the main course, the Black Bishops and the other three could only be regarded as desserts after the meal. "Tell me everything you know about Sebastian Shaw. By the way, tell me about your own detailed experience and background." Richard drank the whiskey in the glass and said to the White Queen, "Okay." The White Queen did not refuse and began to describe the situation of the Black King Shao and herself in detail. Time passed by little, before he knew it, more than half an hour had passed. Although he knew that the Black King Shao and the White Queen in this universe were different from those in the movie, Richard did not expect that they were not only different from the movie, but also different from the personality in the comics. In the comics, Black King Shao became a billionaire at the age of 40. And then joined the Hellfire Club and met the White Queen. Later, he became an ally of the White Queen, instructing the White Queen to kill other candidates, became the Black King of the Hellfire Club, and joined forces with the White Queen to control the Hellfire Club. Here, Black King Shao knew the White Queen before joining the Hellfire Club. To be more precise, he invited the White Queen to join the Hellfire Club. When he invited the White Queen to join, he was already the Black King of the Hellfire Club. As for when he joined the Hellfire Club, the White Queen did not know. However, there is one thing that the White Queen can be sure of, that is, Black King Shao is very rich. To put it simply, all the expenses of the Hellfire Club are borne by Black King Shao. In addition to the fact that Black King Shao's situation is different from that in the comics, the situation of the White Queen is also different from that in the comics. The White Queen in the comics was born in a wealthy family in Boston. Her father is a ruthless businessman, and her mother is a housewife who abuses psychotropic drugs. In the comics, she not only has a brother, but also an older sister and a younger sister. In addition, her sister Adrian and sister Claudia are also mutants. However, in the comics, her relationship with her sister is not very good, and it can be said that there is no emotional communication. Only her brother Christian gets along well with her. In this universe, the White Queen is the only daughter in the family and was born in an ordinary middle-class family in New York. She joined the Hellfire Club not because she agreed with Black King Shaw's ideas, but because after her parents died in a car accident, it was Black King Shaw who pulled her out of the sadness of losing her loved ones. In order to thank Black King Shaw for his help, she joined the Hellfire Club and became the White Queen of the Hellfire Club. After listening to the White Queen's story, Richard's first reaction was that his advantage as a prophet of a time traveler was getting smaller and smaller. Judging from the situation of the White Queen and the Black King Shao, the prophet advantage of the time traveler can only let him roughly know the other party's name and what abilities he has. After sighing in his heart, Richard said to the White Queen, let's go meet Shao and Jiliu now." After that, he stood up and stretched out his right hand to the White Queen. "Yes." The White Queen nodded, stood up and held Richard's right hand. Mind transmission. Richard did not hesitate at all and decisively performed mind transmission. Although mind transmission has not been upgraded, after plundering the mind transmission of the Red Devil, his mind transmission has indeed been greatly enhanced. Before plundering, his mind transmission limit distance was 200 kilometers, and now, the limit distance of mind transmission has been increased to 800 kilometers. Las Vegas is located in Nevada next to California, while Miami is located in Florida on the east coast of the United States, more than 3,500 kilometers away from each other. Simply put, one is close to the west coast of the United States, and the other is on the east coast of the United States, almost across the entire mainland of the United States. It takes 4.5 hours to travel such a long distance even by commercial airliner. Richard and the White Queen took less than a minute to get from the Caesars Palace Hotel in Las Vegas to the Bay Park Yacht Marina next to the Jungle Island in Miami, and saw the Casperdina of the Hellfire Club. Although the name of the yacht has not changed, according to the information provided by the White Queen, there is no nuclear submarine connected to the Casperdina, and it is just a normal luxury yacht. Standing at the dock and looking at the Casperdina yacht, Richard did not continue to pull up the White Queen's right hand, but hugged her slender and seductive waist, and once again performed telepathy. In just a moment, he and the White Queen came to the sun deck of the Casperdina. "You don't need to take action in the next battle, just stand aside and watch," Richard said to the White Queen. "Yeah." The White Queen had no opinion on Richard's arrangement and nodded immediately. After hearing the White Queen's answer, he performed telepathy and looked for Black King Shao. Then, his expression became a little embarrassed. Except for the White Queen, he did not sense anyone on the yacht. Neither Black King Shao nor Riptide were on the yacht now. Richard originally wanted to come over and catch Black King Shao off guard, plunder Black King Zhao's superpowers and ask where Wanda and Pietro were imprisoned, but it turned out that plans could not keep up with changes. "They are not here, call and ask where they are," Richard said to the White Queen. The White Queen did not perform telepathy and did not know that there was no one on the yacht. After hearing Richard's words, she immediately took out a white mobile phone from her white handbag, dialed Black King Zhao's number, and turned on the hands-free. Soon, the call was connected, and Black King Zhao's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Has the invitation been sent?" It has been sent. Azazel and I have returned to the yacht. Where are you and Genos now? That the White Queen said calmly. After Richard tampered with her subconscious, she regarded Richard as her master, and Black King Shao and Riptide became enemies. Genos and I are going out to meet a very important guest, and we will go back in the evening. Let's not talk for now, we'll talk about it when we go back in the evening. After that, Black King Shao hung up the phone. Very important guest. Although he didn't know who Black King Shao was meeting now, when he heard him say the word very important, the first name that came to Richard's mind was Magneto. Could he be meeting Magneto? Did he already know that Wanda and Pietro were Magneto's children? Several guesses immediately flashed through Richard's mind. Chapter 57, Magneto's Clone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do you need me to call Genos to ask? Genos has wanted to sleep with me for a long time. If I ask him, he won't refuse. The White Queen said to Richard. At this time, she had completely adapted to her identity as Richard's subordinate. To be precise, before she found out that her subconscious had been tampered with, she would have regarded Richard as her master. No need. Shao and Genos are together now. If you call him, Shao will definitely know. Since he has said that he will be back in the evening, let's wait for him here. After speaking, Richard came to the sofa next to him, took out a pair of sunglasses and put them on, sat down casually, and enjoyed the sea breeze and sunshine. After seeing him sit down, the White Queen said softly, "I'll go back to the room." "Go." Richard nodded. Although he didn't know what the White Queen was going to do in the room, he didn't take it to heart. Not long after, the White Queen returned to the sun deck and came directly to Richard. Looking at the White Queen standing in front of him, Richard swallowed unconsciously. The White Queen was still wearing white clothes at this time. However, she was no longer wearing the white short skirt before, but a white bikini with very little fabric, except for the key parts. Covered by the bikini, the graceful figure of the White Queen was fully displayed in Richard's sight. The White Queen is 178 centimeters tall, and her model-like height gives her a pair of proud long legs, not only long, but also round legs, with beautiful leg lines, which are extremely eye-catching. Even if Richard is not a leg control, he still feels a little distracted after seeing the straight long legs of the White Queen. Legs for years. This word flashed through his mind immediately. In addition to this pair of proud long legs, there is a slender waist, towering white and tender snow-capped mountains, and sexy curves. Beauty. A beauty that can make men have primitive animal desires. Women will only affect the speed of my sword drawing. Richard had always used this sentence to remind himself before, but now, he thinks it is not bad to spend some time on women occasionally and communicate with beautiful opposite sex about the origin of life and the mysteries of the universe. Although Richard was wearing sunglasses, the White Queen's female intuition told her that Richard was scanning her body back and forth with an undisguised gaze. After discovering this, a satisfied smile appeared on her face. In the business suite of Caesar Palace Hotel, Richard's behavior of retreating a few meters by teleportation gave her a feeling that she was not charming enough. Not only that, just like Mystique when she first met Richard, she also doubted whether Richard liked men. However, now, she can be sure that Richard's sexual orientation is normal. It's just that he is more controlled than ordinary men. After taking a satisfied look at Richard, who was looking at her, the White Queen came to the sofa opposite, picked up the sunglasses, and put them on, and lay down in an extremely seductive posture. Although the White Queen didn't speak now, Richard knew what she was thinking after seeing her pose. "Please help me apply sunscreen." The voice of the White Queen suddenly sounded. Richard stood up and came to the White Queen, smiling and saying, "No need to apply any sunscreen." After that, he picked up the White Queen and continued, "Which room do you live in?" "The guest bedroom on the starboard side." The White Queen cooperated and hugged Richard's neck, and replied softly. After hearing the White Queen's answer, Richard decisively performed teleportation and came from the sun deck to the guest bedroom on the starboard side. To be precise, he carried the White Queen to the bed in the guest bedroom. Soon, the guest bedroom sounded an alluring sound that was not suitable for children and represented the origin of life. At night, the restaurant of the yacht, Richard tasted the dinner prepared by the White Queen. although the White Queen was not a chef with superb cooking skills and only prepared some very common American dinners, he didn't mind. In the guest bedroom on the starboard side, the White Queen has shown with her actions that even if she is a vase that people can't put down, worth playing with repeatedly and leaving a place in the collection room, while tasting the dinner prepared by the White Queen. Richard thought of Clarice unconsciously. Sure enough, Chinese food is more in line with his appetite. I don't know how she is doing in the mutant school. Time passed by little, just as they were about to finish dinner, Richard suddenly stopped his actions and said to the White Queen sitting opposite him. They are back, and they brought several guests. After hearing his words, the White Queen also performed telepathy. Without much effort, she sensed Black King Shao, Jiliu and others. Although they sensed them, neither Richard nor the White Queen used telepathy to invade them. Unlike the movie universe, Black King Shao in this universe is much more cautious. According to the White Queen, whether he was out, on a yacht, or in the secret base of the Hellfire Club, Black King Shao wore a mind-isolating helmet most of the time. Richard was not surprised that Black King Shao would be much more cautious than in the movie, because there are many more psychics in this universe than in the movies. In the movies, there are only two psychics, one is the White Queen, and the other is Professor X. When there are only two psychics, and one of them is his own, Black King Shao certainly won't wear a mind-isolating helmet often, not to mention Black King Shao. Even Richard, who has only been in this world for 3 months, has already encountered, or more accurately, killed several psychics. Although not all psychics have complete telepathic abilities, this is enough for Black King Shao to wear a mind-isolating helmet for a long time. As the leader of the Hellfire Club and a mutant with strong ambitions, if he doesn't even have this little bit of vigilance, he would be too lax. Apart from anything else, the existence of Professor X alone is enough to make him wear a mind-isolating helmet for a long time. Not only him, but Magneto is the same. In addition to Black King Shao's habit of wearing a mind-isolating helmet for a long time, the White Queen also provided a piece of information. That is, the number of mind-isolating helmets in this world is not small, although not everyone has one. According to the White Queen, many high-ranking government officials in the United States have helmets with similar effects. Not only the United States, but other countries are similar. Not only that, how to prevent the invasion of psychics is still a key research project for each country. Although Professor X is not as extreme as Magneto, governments are more wary of him than Magneto. If Magneto's superpowers are equivalent to a nuclear bomb in the open, then Professor X's superpowers are equivalent to a time bomb that may appear near everyone at any time. If it weren't for not knowing what other tricks Professor X had, and not being sure of completely taking him and the X-Men down, the US government would have taken action against him and the X-Men long ago. Not long after, Black King Shao, Rapids and others came to the restaurant and saw Richard and the White Queen having dinner. After seeing Richard and the White Queen sitting together for dinner, Black King Shao and Rapids frowned at the same time. Although they didn't know why Richard was here, they had noticed something wrong. They were not the only ones who were surprised. Richard also looked at them with a surprised expression, or rather, he looked at a middle-aged man behind them with a surprised expression. Magneto. To be precise, it should be a middle-aged version of Magneto's clone. Chapter 58, The Pinnacle of Genetic Engineering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even Magneto can be cloned. Although he had seen Sabretooth as clone in the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department and knew that the Mutant Affairs Department had mastered the technology of cloning mutants, but Richard never thought that he would see Magneto's clone on the yacht of the Hellfire Club. Even if he saw Magneto himself now, he would not be so surprised. After all, the Brotherhood of Mutants and the Hellfire Club both opposed the Mutant Restriction Act and the US government, and could reach a cooperative relationship to some extent, but Magneto's clone, and the middle-aged version of Magneto's clone, was completely beyond his expectations. It's a bit troublesome. Black King Shao alone is not a target that can be easily killed. With the addition of the middle-aged version of Magneto's clone, the difficulty rises sharply. Although it is completely different from his plan, Richard still remains calm. Without any panic or fear. He is not sure whether he can defeat Black King Shao and Magneto's clone at the same time, but he was sure of one thing, that is, if he wanted to leave, Black King Shao and Magneto's clones could not stop him. Emma, what's going on? Where is Azazel? Before Black King Shao could speak, Jiliu said to the White Queen. Just as the White Queen was about to answer Jiliu, Richard's voice rang out. He's dead, I killed him. Richard put down his knife and fork, picked up the napkin to wipe the corner of his mouth, and stood up. After hearing his answer, a small tornado immediately appeared in the palm of Jiliu's right hand. Jiliu in the comics and Jiliu in the movie have completely different superpowers. In the comics, Jiliu has the superpower of rotating his body at high speed, attracting surrounding objects, or making the bones produce calcification, and while rotating, releasing these calcifications with the power of bullets through the skin to attack the enemy. In the movie, Jiliu's ability is much simpler: control and create a whirlwind. Just as Jiliu was about to release the small tornado in his hand to attack Richard, Black King Shaw raised his right hand to stop him. Then, he said to Richard, "Did Azazel offend you when he sent the invitation?" Richard shook his head and said slowly, "He didn't offend me, I just don't want to see him alive." Richard's tone was very calm as if he was saying that the night was very nice tonight. "I see. Then it seems there is nothing to talk about." As soon as Black King Shao finished speaking, Jiliu launched the small tornado in his hand. As the flight distance increased, the small tornado that was only 20 to 30 centimeters high immediately soared to 3 or 4 meters high, flying towards Richard and Jisoo. Although the White Queen is now next to Richard, neither Jiliu nor Black King Shao cares whether they will accidentally hurt her, or they have already seen that the White Queen has surrendered to Richard. The tornado released by Jiliu has made the entire restaurant a mess before it hits Richard. Richard did not use teleportation to leave, but raised his right hand to cast a strong wind. As the magic power ran, an equally thick tornado appeared out of thin air and flew towards the tornado released by the rapid flow. Boom. The two tornadoes rotating in opposite directions collided fiercely and exploded like a bomb. The uncontrolled airflow and shock wave attacked everyone in the restaurant without distinguishing between friend and foe, except for Richard. Whether it was the White Queen, Black King Shaw, the clones of the Rapid Flow and Magneto, or the two mutants who were not sure whether they were clones, they all used their own superpowers. The White Queen used the diamond form and turned into a shining diamond man like a work of art, with greatly increased strength, physical strength, and defense. Black King Shaw used the superpower of energy absorption to absorb all the airflows attacking him. As for the Rapid Flow and Magneto's clones, they used their own abilities to create a barrier in front of them. The barrier created by the violent force was like a wind wall, while Magneto's clones used super high-intensity magnetic force to create a force field wall that was invisible to the naked eye but had amazing defense. The two mutants behind Magneto's clone, one turned into a ball of water, and the other was wrapped in orange-red flames. As the only person at the scene who did not use superpowers, Richard stood directly on the spot, releasing magic to create an invisible barrier in front of him. For him with a super physique, even if he was hit by the uncontrolled airflow and shock wave, he would be fine, but he didn't want his hair to be blown by these airflows and shock waves. Silver long hair dancing slightly in the wind, that's called handsome. If it was blown into a mess, it would not be handsome, but embarrassing. The uncontrolled airflow and shock wave did not hurt anyone in the restaurant, but made the originally exquisite restaurant a mess, blowing away the tables, chairs and dishes in the restaurant, and shattering the glass of the restaurant. When everything returned to calm, Richard came to the White Queen slowly and hugged the White Queen's slender waist. Telepathy. Under the watchful eyes of Black King Shaw and Magneto's clone, Richard took the White Queen in diamond form off the yacht and came to the rooftop of a building near the dock. "The next battle is not suitable for you, just stand here and watch," Richard said to the White Queen. "Do you really not need my help? Except for Shao, who is wearing a helmet, I can help you deal with other people," the White Queen said quickly. "No, I can handle it myself. By the way, if you are bored, you can think about what other postures can make me and you more happy," Richard said with a smile. After that, he once again performed telepathy and returned to the messy restaurant, summoning the authentic knife from the system space. After seeing him come back alone, Black King Shao said calmly, "Are you going to fight 1 against 5 and deal with the 5 of us at the same time? Are you really so confident?" After hearing what Black King Shao said, Richard shook his head. 1 against 5? No, 1 against 5 is the worst case. If you are lucky, This is a one-on-one between me and you. Telepathy. Without any hesitation, Richard immediately performed telepathy. Although his telepathy is not as strong as that of the White Queen and Professor X, it is also stronger than that of ordinary psychics. Black King Shaw was wearing a mind-isolating helmet, so he didn't have to worry about telepathy, but it was different for Riptide and the others. In just a moment, Richard used telepathy to freeze Riptide. All three had mind isolation. Richard's expression became a little serious. He thought he could at least freeze Riptide and Magneto's clone. Unexpectedly, in addition to Riptide, Magneto's clone and the other two mutants also had mind isolation. After seeing the serious expression on his face, Black King Shaw looked at him with disdain and said, "Do you think I don't know you have telepathy?" At this point, Black King Shaw paused, raised his right hand and pointed at Magneto's clone, and continued. "Do you think he is just a clone of Magneto, Eric? Let me give you a brief introduction. These three are not ordinary clones. They are the latest masterpieces of the Hellfire Club and the Department of Mutant Affairs, and the pinnacle of genetic engineering." Hunter. Chapter 59 Emma. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although he didn't know what the pinnacle work of genetic engineering that He Wang Xiao said was exactly about it, Richard could probably make some guesses now. The so-called hunters, judging from the situation in front of them, are not just clones of mutants, but also clones based on the original mutants that have been adjusted accordingly using genetic engineering, or in other words, enhanced clones. Isn't the Hellfire Club opposed to the Mutant Restriction Act? You are opposing the Mutant Restriction Act while cooperating with the Department of Mutant Affairs. You are very contradictory. Although he failed to immobilize the enhanced clone called Hunter by Black King Shao, Richard still did not panic. Because of his psychic isolation ability, he really couldn't immobilize them telepathically, but except for Magneto's enhanced clone, the other two enhanced clones cannot threaten him, whether it's like an elemental water man or a body wrapped in high-temperature flames. It's not a tricky superpower. All he needs to worry about is Black King Shao and Magneto's enhanced clones. There are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank you. If you hadn't gone on a killing spree in the Los Angeles branch and made the people in the Department of Mutant Affairs realize that the Sentinel robots were not as reliable as they thought, they would not have come to cooperate with me. You are indeed very strong, but there are limits to a person's power. I don't care if you killed Azazel. For the sake of everyone being mutants, I will give you another chance to join the Hellfire Club. As long as you join, the position of White King will be yours. Your position in the Hellfire Club is only below mine. Of course, the premise is that you have to remove the manipulation you did on Emma. Although Black King Shao didn't know what Richard did to the White Queen, he was certain of one thing, that is, Richard must have done something to the White Queen. Otherwise, the White Queen would not have taken refuge in Richard, who killed the Red Devil so easily. In any case, the White Queen had been with them for several years, so she wouldn't betray them just because they wanted to. After hearing what Black King Shao said, Richard immediately said, "Besides you are so generous. By the way, Emma told me something this afternoon. She said that you have always wanted to get her into bed, but you are very hypocritical and prudish. In addition, you are also very greedy. You want her body but also want her to work for you, so you can only use sweet words to coax her, hoping that she will climb into your bed willingly. But it's a pity that she never promised you, so you still don't know what it's like to sleep with her. For the sake of your generosity, I will satisfy your curiosity. Emma is very moist." As soon as he finished speaking, Richard raised his authentic sword and waved it casually at Sanshin. As the authentic sword fell, 7 or 8 crescent-shaped sword energy, more than 1 meter long, purple on the outside and white on the inside, flew towards He Wang Xiao and his group. Without any hesitation, Black King Shao immediately used his energy absorption superpower. At the same time, Magneto's clone also created a defensive force field formed by super-strong magnetism to protect himself and the other two mutants. The crescent-shaped sword energy that attacked He Wang Xiao collapsed instantly after reaching a few dozen centimeters in front of him, turning into pure energy and being absorbed into his body. Part of the remaining crescent-shaped sword energy passed through Riptide's body. cutting Riptide, who was as motionless as a wax statue, into several pieces. The other part hit the defensive force field created by Magneto's clone and exploded with a bang. Plunder. Although he only killed Riptide, Richard immediately started to plunder, acquire new abilities, control the whirlwind. Controlling the whirlwind can strengthen the skill, Big Wind. Is it strengthened? After seeing the system information, Richard decisively chose yes, the skill Big Wind has been strengthened. Although Riptide's control whirlwind is unlikely to increase the level of Grand Wind, it is better than no enhancement at all. Compared with controlling a whirlwind, the powerful wind not only has a wider application range, but also does not need to worry about being inhibited by means of inhibiting X-gene superpowers. After seeing Richard kill Riptide, Black King Zhao's expression became extremely cold. Although he is not the kind of leader who would fight for his subordinates, Riptide is still a core member of the Hellfire Club. What's more, Riptide is obedient. A very capable and obedient subordinate was killed in front of him. It would be strange if he felt happy. Since you want to die, then I will make it happen for you. Black King Zhao looked at Richard with murderous intent and said in a cold tone. You want to kill me, but you're not qualified enough. Richard replied calmly. Black King Zhao's energy absorption is indeed a very tricky superpower, but it is far from invincible. Apart from anything else, if Richard didn't want him to get close to him, Black King Zhao wouldn't be able to get close to him no matter how much energy he absorbed, unless he also has the superpower of teleportation. After hearing what Richard said, Black King Zhao did not continue to waste time with harsh words, but said to the 3 enhanced clones behind him. Number 7, Number 8, stop him. Number 3, release your energy to me. On the surface, these 3 enhanced clones called Hunters by Black King Zhao look no different from normal people, but Richard found that these 3 enhanced clones don't seem to be very smart. In other words, they give people a feeling of having no self-thought. Although they can use superpowers skillfully, they have not said a word since they appeared. Not only that, there is no expression on their faces. Whether they are attacked by crescent-shaped sword energy or killed violently, they stand behind Black King Zhao expressionlessly like robots without emotions and self-awareness. After discovering this, Richard immediately thought of X-24 in the movie Wolverine 3, because it is a product of ripening with genetic engineering. X-24's emotions are not complete. To be precise, it only retains the emotion of anger. Although there is only the emotion of anger, compared with the 3 enhanced clones behind Black King Zhao, X-24 is more like a real person. At least X-24 will be angry. As soon as Black King Zhao finished speaking, Number 7, who was surrounded by flames, and Number 8, who looked like a water man, walked towards Richard. The Magneto clone called Number 3 used his superpowers to create an ultra-high-intensity magnetic field, which completely enveloped Black King Zhao. After being enveloped by the ultra-high-intensity magnetic field created by Number 3, Black King Zhao immediately absorbed the energy of the magnetic field. At the same time, Number 7 and Number 8 attacked Richard. Number 7, who was surrounded by flames, raised his arms, and his 2 arms fired orange-red flames at Richard like a flamethrower, and Number 8, who looked like a water man, turned into a water tornado and hit him hard. Teleportation. Without any hesitation, Richard decisively performed teleportation, avoided the attacks of Number 7 and Number 8, and instantly came to the sun deck outside. Then, he raised his right hand, and a small black hole-like black energy ball appeared above his palm. Black Magic Crystal. After seeing the black energy ball on Richard's right hand, Black King Zhao immediately guessed his purpose. Without any hesitation, he immediately shouted, "Leave the yacht immediately." Although Black King Zhao guessed Richard's purpose, it was too late. As he spoke, a green beam of light descended from the sky onto the yacht. More than 100 meters above the yacht, a huge meteorite with a diameter of more than 10 meters and wrapped in flames flew towards the yacht at a speed of more than 100 meters per second. Boom! The huge meteorite that appeared out of thin air hit the yacht accurately like a cruise missile. To be precise, it hit the area where the restaurant was located. The meteorite that fell from the sky broke the yacht in half and fell into the sea. The huge impact force raised waves 20 to 30 meters high and threw the wreckage of the yacht away. Chapter 60 Water Elementalization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although the yacht marina at night was not as lively as during the day, the sound caused by the meteorite hitting the Casperdina immediately attracted the attention of others, whether it was the wealthy people on other yachts, the staff at the marina, or the ordinary people walking on the nearby beach. They were all startled by the sound of the meteorite hitting the Casperdina and the waves it caused. What happened? Was it a terrorist attack? Although the meteorite summoned by Richard this time was not small, the whole process from him summoning the meteorite to hitting the Casperdina took less than 1 second. The only person who saw the whole process clearly was the White Queen standing on the roof of a nearby building. After seeing Richard summon a meteorite to destroy the Casperdina, the White Queen frowned slightly. She didn't think Richard was going too far. Nor was she worried about Black King Shao and others, but she was a little reluctant to part with the brand-name clothes and bags in her bedroom closet. Those were the clothes and bags she carefully selected. Many of them were specially designed by famous designers. She has a special liking for white. In order to have a unique and exclusive style, she has spent a lot of money to find a famous designer to tailor her clothes. Although she felt a little regretful, she quickly accepted it and looked at Richard floating above the dock. Aren't they just some clothes and bags? No big deal. When the White Queen looked at Richard, the wealthy people and staff who were frightened by the loud noise and waves also saw Richard floating in the air. It was difficult not to notice a handsome man with silver hair and a silver-white long sword floating in the air. After seeing Richard, the people near the dock showed unexpected expressions. Why did he come to Miami? Wasn't he in San Francisco? Was the yacht just now from the Avengers? Was he fighting with the people from the Mutant Affairs Department? Although San Francisco and Miami are thousands of kilometers apart, one is close to the west coast of the United States, and the other is on the east coast of the United States, but the video and news of Richard summoning a meteorite to attack Hulk in San Francisco at noon today were not only seen by them, but also by many people on the other side of the earth. After realizing that the person who destroyed the yacht was most likely Richard, the originally quiet dock immediately became extremely lively. The yachts with people on board left the dock one after another. The staff on the dock and the tourists on the nearby beach fled away from the dock as fast as possible. Although they didn't know who Richard was fighting with, they were sure of one thing, that is, it was not a wise decision to stay nearby and watch the excitement. The onlookers in San Francisco had a deep understanding of this. Richard didn't care about these people. While controlling the whirlwind created by the strong wind to make himself float in the air, he used telepathy to sense Black King Shao and others. The power of the meteorite just now was indeed very good, but it was not enough to kill Black King Shao. In other words, if Black King Shao was killed so easily, then Black King Shao would be too inferior. Richard sensed Black King Shao without much effort. The psychic helmet worn by Black King Shao can only prevent psychics from invading his brain, but it will not make him completely invisible in telepathy. In addition to Black King Shao, Richard also sensed Magneto's clone and the Waterman codenamed Number 8. As for the mutant codenamed Number 7, he did not sense it. Obviously, Number 7 died directly under the attack of the meteorite. Although he did not know where the body of mutant Number 7 was, Richard still performed Plunder, gain new abilities, create and release flames, mental isolation. Gain the same type of abilities, ability fusion. Telepathy is enhanced. Making and releasing flames can enhance the skill. Big Flame, do you want to enhance it? Without any hesitation, Richard decisively chose yes. Skill Big Flame is enhanced. Turning off the information panel, Richard looked at Black King Shao and the other person who flew out of the sea. Magneto's clone created a spherical force field to protect himself and Black King Shao. As for the Number 8 mutant Aquaman, he was not in the spherical force field created by Magneto's clone, but was controlling the sea water and standing on the waves. After seeing that Aquaman also had the ability to control the sea water, Richard found that he had underestimated him. He thought that Aquaman could only make his body elemental. Unexpectedly, Aquaman could also control the sea water. If Aquaman's superpowers were elementalization of the body and isolation of the mind, Richard would give him a 7-point superpower rating, but if he could control the sea water, then Aquaman's superpower rating would be 8 point. Can he only control the sea water? Or can he control any liquid? Richard looked at Aquaman with interest. After looking at Aquaman for a few seconds, he quickly made a decision: kill Aquaman first. Then find a way to kill Black King Shao and Magneto's clones. After making the decision, Richard did not hesitate at all and immediately performed teleportation. In just a moment, he came behind Aquaman. Although he didn't know which mutant the Hydra Man was a strengthened clone of, he was very sure of one thing: ordinary physical attacks would not cause any harm to the current Hydra Man. However, he still waved the authentic sword in his hand. Laugh. The authentic sword swung out with lightning and slashed directly at Waterman's neck. Before the Waterman standing on the waves could react, the Zhengzong sword slashed across his neck. His head, which was completely made of water, flew high, drew a beautiful parabola in the air, and fell into the sea. Although his head was chopped off, the Waterman in front of Richard did not collapse and still stood on the waves. Not only that, the Waterman's head quickly grew out, and when he turned to face Richard, he raised his hands. As the Waterman raised his hands, 5 or 6 large and small waterspouts suddenly appeared on the sea. The wildly spinning waterspouts hit Richard at the same time. Richard ignored the waterspout that hit him, nor did he use teleportation to leave. Instead, he said to the Waterman in front of him, "Your superpowers are very good and you can be immune to most physical attacks. But unfortunately, you should not show off your abilities in front of me, but should leave immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, Richard's right hand grabbed Shuiran's neck. Big blizzard. Freeze. The magic power in Richard's body turned into biting cold air and surged out from his right hand. Whether it was the Waterman in front of him, the waterspout attacking him, or the waves at the Waterman's feet, they were all frozen instantly. After taking a look at the Waterman who had turned into Iceman, Richard exerted a slight force on his right hand. Bang. The Waterman, whose body was completely frozen, shattered like glass, and ice cubes of all sizes fell like raindrops onto the seawater that was frozen into an ice cap. The combat IQ of these guys is indeed not high. After complaining in his mind, Richard started to plunder, acquire new abilities, control water, water elementalization, and mental isolation. Acquire the same type of abilities, ability fusion. Telepathy has been strengthened. X-Gene Superpower Content Update. Beta level, energy emission, energy absorption, invisibility, supervision, telepathy, giant body, gravity restraint, heat vision, air bomb, bounce, attack transfer, thought movement, creation of force field, energy manifestation, control water, water elementalization. After seeing the information given by the system, Richard sighed with some disappointment. He originally thought that Hydraman's superpower would be alpha level, but it turns out that he thought too much. Although Hydraman's superpower level was not the alpha level he imagined, he quickly put this matter behind him. Just because it's not alpha now, doesn't mean it won't be in the future. As long as we continue to plunder the same type of abilities, the ability to manipulate and turn into water will become alpha sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. After killing the Hydraman, Richard looked at the clones of Black King Shao and Magneto that had landed on the dock. The hors d'oeuvres are finished. It's time to start dinner tonight.